Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games back with another cool pinball repair video for you this evening. Look how bright that is. This is a Stern Stingray that we've been working on, and man, we have been working right through it. Mucho trabajo. I think that's how you say it. Well, we have done the power transformer, the rectifier board, and the solenoid board on previous videos. And then at the end of the last video, we turned it on with this old crummy CPU in it, MPU in it, and it started just doing crazy stuff because it has battery damage. So in this video, we're going to see if that board is salvageable, or if we need to put a different one in, or what the deal is. So that's where we're up to now. It's had corrosion, and the connectors, I'm sure, need repinned, but you can just see how it looks in the game. Now here's look at this, the board under it is pretty rough too, the lamp board. Look at that. Y'all wanted me to get a new camera. There you go. There you go, people. That's what the new camera brings you. Nastiness. Hope you weren't eating lunch. What's the closest it'll let me get? Oh, a little more. A little more. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to pop that MPU out of it. We'll put it on the bench and we'll see if we can fix it. How's that sound? Does that sound like a good premise for a video? Let's watch. This is what we're starting with. This is Stern's MPU 100. So this was their very first board that they put in machines. And the sad thing about this one being damaged is it's actually in very good shape. Like, look at that. Now, I don't know if those sockets are worth a damn, but look how clean everything is. I mean, it's just, the thing survived all this time. Look, it still even has like sheen on it, right? It survived all this time. But that freaking battery, ugh, ugh. So you know what I think? Here, let's show it now. Okay, so those capacitors and resistors are fine, right? This connector is probably screwed up. You've got damage up to here, but this is just a ground trace. It's no big deal. Okay, you've got damage here, but not crazy. Damage here, but not crazy. Damage obvious on this socket, but nothing on this one really. Right? Damage here, damage here. This is one of the ones that I always want to look at. Let's put way too much light on it. What do you think? What do you think? Did it get under there and screw that socket up? I don't know. Might need replaced. You've got damage here. You got more ground trace damage. A little bit of damage here. Damage here, but minor. Damage here, but minor. And then you've got the same up the ground trace here. These are fine. Might need a new connector. Okay, so it's... That's pretty much what's going on. So, let's look at the back. Everything on the top looks decent. Here's the main power connector. And it does not look bad, which means it'll be easy to swap. Got a little bit of nonsense here, but this one socket we would theoretically replace anyway. Sometimes you get enough damage here that it breaks a trace, like right there. So you might have to put a jumper wire or something. And then that connector is not the cleanest, but I think it can be replaced. So, I'll tell you what. For the sake of 3 things, I'm going to fix this board. Right? The first reason I'm going to fix this board, I've just decided. The first reason I'm going to fix this board is because I will save $200 if I fix this board. Okay? And, you know, that's a damn good reason to do something, right? So it's fun anyway. But I'll save $200 because I won't have to buy a new board if I fix this board. So I'm going to do that. And then the second reason is I'll get a really good video out of fixing this board. You're watching it right now. It must be interesting or you wouldn't be wasting your time, right? So I'll get to entertain all of y'all. So that's the second reason I'm going to fix this board. And then the third reason I'm going to fix this board, I'm going to fix this board for the love of the game. Okay, so the first thing I have to do is start removing the parts that are in the way of the damage. If I was just fixing this, it'd be real easy to just scrape that and get it as clean as possible. But since we've got all these parts that are in the way too, I have to clean all them. So I'm going to use a little, like I'm going to try to use a wire brush to clean them up as much as I can. And the most important place to do it is on the back. You have to get this clean because I'm going to remove these parts, but you can't, solder will not, basically your soldering iron will not work if it's already got corrosion like this. So you have to get it back to shiny and then add a little bit of solder and then remove the solder and the parts will come off. If you just, like if I take the soldering gun and just try to heat that up, all I'll do is destroy the trace and burn up part of the board. So the very first thing you need to do is just clean it up as much as you can, even with just a stiff wire brush. Because even if you screw up the traces, you can go back and fix them. All of this green stuff, like the solder mask, that's gone. So don't even try to save that. It's going to be gone. So I'm just going to get to scraping. You don't want to use anything like a file or a really heavy file if you can help it, because you don't want to purposely go through the traces. But like a stiff wire brush to get as much of this off as possible is a good way to go. And then even if it's a place where you can get to it with sandpaper or something, that's good. You just want to get down to where you've got bare, good-looking solder, something like that, or copper or something that you're going to be able to get the solder to stick to. Look at that crap. Look at that. How close will it go? Look at that. This is like a science experiment. So that's what we're trying to get rid of. We want that to look more like that, or even better, more like that. So I'm going to scrape, and see if I can get most of this clean so that I can unsolder all the stuff on the very bottom. And then we'll replace it all, eventually. But that's step one. So see how we've shined up the pins a little bit? This is just step one. We're just trying to get it where you can actually use solder to remove them. And then once we get it where there's nothing on it, it's a lot easier to clean because you can just go hard on it with like a little piece of sandpaper or something. But we got to get all the extra junk off that we're going to have to replace. So now that I've got it a little shiny, I'm going to hit it with the soldering iron, see if I can flow new solder on it, and then remove the solder and get that part out. And I'm going to try to do that with just about everything on the very bottom of the board. Okay, so we got all the stuff off the bottom. But there very well may be corrosion under this socket and under this socket. So I'm going to go ahead and pull those two. I hate to, but you kind of have to. I mean, like there's a little bit right there. Right? So since there's a little bit that close, there may be some on those pins. And this looks a little iffy right there. So I'm going to just go ahead and take that one and that one. Ones like this where it's exposed, you can tell that there's not much going on, so I can leave that one. And then up to here, we're good. There's little pieces of the resistors and stuff sticking up everywhere. That's all fine. We're going to get all that once we start sanding it. But also, I should have mentioned earlier, if you have like a bead blaster, you may be able to hit some of these and leave them in place. Because if you can get all the corrosion off around them and get them looking nice and shiny, you can probably leave them. But I don't have a bead blaster, so I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way. The old-fashioned way. So I'll take these two, though, just to make sure there's nothing under them. And it looks like a ton of work, but, you know, it took like 20 minutes, and we still didn't have to mess with any of that stuff. So Is it worth it to save 200 bucks? I think so, for 3 reasons. Here's what it looks like with the sockets removed. There was some nastiness under that one. Good thing I went for it. So you saw how it looked. Okay, this is how it looked underneath. See the green in the sockets there? I mean in the pins. That's no bueno. Now the other one may have still been fine. It's a little dirty, but I don't see any obvious corrosion. So we cut and we cut until we can't cut anymore. All right, so now I'm going to there's a few broken off legs and stuff from a few of the pieces that were really bad. So I'm going to pull those out as best I can, and then I'm going to go nuts with sandpaper on this and get it as shiny as I can. It's not going to be perfect, but I'm going to get it more shiny than it is now. How about that? And then once we get that how we want it, I'll come back and show you what we're starting with. Because basically, once we get it down to you can't see any more corrosion, well, we can start putting it all back together. All right, it ain't pretty, but all the trash is gone. So it took about an hour, and I have places where I have lost a trace. I tried to use a Dremel, but the stuff was so screwed up that the Dremel would just eat right through it, so we lost some of the copper because of that. All this is from sandpaper. All right, look over here. A lot of that was gone. So your problem would be this is a ground trace all the way around the board, and so you need that to be, you don't need it to be complete, but you need it to be, well, you need it to be complete, but you don't need all this necessarily. But like these capacitors here do connect to ground, so it's got to be, I think I might be able to join some of that though with just solder. But your main problem is down here at the bottom, you'll have things that hit ground. Like this is where the battery connected. So this is, you know, the worst area. But so the battery, whatever you put on, like a replacement capacitor or but I'm going to try a button battery. I'm going to see if people have had good luck with that. But the ground has to connect here, or I guess you could connect that anywhere. But so see this trace up to this chip here, and this transistor here, right? So it comes down to here, but it's broken, and who knows if that's all still connected. Doesn't look like it is. So you know, I've got to get a. You could probably get away with just having it connected to the ground on one side, but I'd like to have it, you know, back resembling how it was. I don't want it to look how it was because that'll never happen, but I want it to be connected, right? And then you've got the same thing here. Same thing here, 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 you know. So you got to just make sure everything's connected. I took the pins out. And everything's cleaned up. Might hit that again. Pretty wild, very ugly. So that's what we're starting with. Now we can start building it back. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some vinegar, and I'm going to take a toothbrush and I'm going to brush on here because I'm trying to get some of the vinegar maybe down into some of the vias. So like if this trace stops, it goes to the other side of the board. Well, in between the board, there is also copper, and that probably has the same crap on it, right? So I'm going to just scrub it with a toothbrush with vinegar to hopefully neutralize some of that. Somebody or a few people in the other video were saying that, no, I don't do vinegar because then you're taking it too far the other way. That's the way I've always done it. I haven't had a problem with it. So you can do it the way you want to do it, though. But the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to take vinegar and rub on everything that was affected on both sides. And then once I get that on there good, I'm going to rinse all that off with water. So once you put water on the board, now you have to worry about, well, now you got water on the board, right? So you can take rubbing alcohol and pour rubbing alcohol on it, and that will make whatever water's hiding from you evaporate. So I'm going to do those in the sink, and then I'll bring it back and we'll see how it looks. So that's what it looks like after we cleaned it up. That's how we're going to leave it. Obviously need a bunch of work down here to get all that just right. That's how the back ended up. So I think we're good to go from here. We can start putting her back together. Now, how do you put it back together? Well, the way I used to do it was I would go to Great Plains Electronics and talk to our buddy Ed. If you go to Great Plains Electronics, Mr. Ed sells parts. He's kind of a hobbyist, but he has a remarkable amount of parts for pinball machines that he keeps in stock. So if you need connectors or any of the little weird stuff, you can go there. Now, what he used to do was he provided a kit to rebuild the corrosion damage. So it came with a little chart to show where everything goes. It came with a little parts list to show all the different parts on the MPU. And then it came with an instruction sheet, and it kind of showed you the most common repair parts and what value they were, and a few little notes and things. But lately, whenever I've been looking there, he's been out of them. So I think he hasn't made any new kits up for a while. But you can still go there and get his instructions, which I don't think he minds. It's basically all of those parts. It's very cheap stuff. It's common stuff. You can get it very inexpensively, but getting it all in one place is a big time saver, right? And not having to order 2 of this one and 2 of that one, and then figuring out, oh, look, that resistor for R17 is the same as this other one. I could have just ordered 2 of those. It's big. It takes forever. So Ed has done all that hard work for you, but he doesn't have any in right now. So you can also go to Big Daddy Enterprises, and Big Daddy will sell you a kit. I think they're $15. Or you can just order the stuff yourself if you want. But since I'm so old school, I have several of these kits that I have ordered from Ed over the years with little pieces of them left. And the reason that I still have them is because usually whenever you're working on one, you don't need everything in the kit. So you might, have one where there's just a couple parts you need to replace. This one here is pretty extreme, which is good for the video, I guess. So I'm going to need a bunch of the parts out of the kit. So I've got most of the stuff here. If I don't, I still have the old corroded stuff. Maybe I'll just reuse some of it. What do you think? Those yellow thingamajigs look like they're still good. So I'm going to start putting the stuff back on, and we'll see what we get. So I'll come back when I get a little bit of it on. I would set up the camera and do like time lapse and all that, but folks, it takes forever to do that, and you get the gist of it. I'm just trying to help people that have a machine that they want to work on, but they don't have a ton of money to spend. That's kind of what my channel is kind of aimed about whenever we do repair videos. So I'm just showing you an inexpensive way to do it. So I'll be back whenever I get some of it repopulated, and we'll talk about whatever I found. Okay, we're getting there. It's ugly, but it's working. Well, I don't know if it's working, but it's going back together. Now, that part of it's working. The ugliness is basically because since I have parts of this trace just completely destroyed, I'm kind of, as I go, remaking it so that with cap legs and resistor legs and stuff, so that we've got a nice connection all the way around. And we're getting there. Some of the caps, these are 0.01 microfarads. I didn't have any. I ran out of the small pretty ones, so I just had to use some that are like 2,000 volts, which you only need 50, and that's not perfect, but it'll work. So we're down to, I need to put in the transistors. So there's 3 transistors. I need to put in the diode. I need to put in 3 sockets, and I need to put in the 2 connectors. But all of the resistors and the capacitors and the diodes are put in, I believe, unless I'm missing one. Let's see. I had to reuse these, the two yellow things that ironically I mentioned earlier. These are inductors. We need a transistor there, a transistor there, a transistor there. The diode goes there that does the pretty little flashes for you. And that's it. So we're getting there. So I'm going home tomorrow. We'll see if we can finish it. Oh, it took me about an hour and a half to put all that back. Here's the back as of now. All right, so we'll finish it tomorrow. This is what we ended up with. Pretty ugly, but I think it's going to work. The problem you always have to worry about are these ones that go right down by the battery. These little lines, a lot of times they won't connect over to the 5101. So what you can do, usually it's the via. It's like right there where it goes through the board. So what you can do is you can clean that hole out, and then you can put like a cap leg through the hole and solder it to the trace at the top and the trace on the bottom. And if you get a good solder, it makes it a nice solid connection. That's usually the main problem. And then of course you got to make sure that your ground goes all the way around like we were talking about. And then everywhere that there's a ground, you got to check to make sure that it's connected to the ground plane over here where it connects to the ground coming in. And so all of these everything's connected that's supposed to be connected. Everything looks good. All of the traces that run over to the 5101 seem to be connected. All of the pins on the sockets seem to be connected to the board on the pin where it was supposed to go. I checked all of it with my multimeter. Both of these chips had no corrosion or nasty stuff on the legs. I just cleaned them up a little bit. I removed both of the ROMs. This one, the legs were real tarnished. Removed the processor and the other PIA and cleaned them up, put them back in their socket. So we're ready to test now. Oh, I put a yellow diode on it just for giggles. It may be in backwards though, so if it is, it probably won't light up or it'll stay lit on or something like that. So I might have to swap that. I put new connectors on it. But before I can even try it, the connector that plugs in here is the power one, and then the one over here is, I think that's the switches. Well, yeah, I think that's switches. I think both of these are switches actually. But the connector that plugs in here and here are real damaged in the cabinet. So I've got to take the housings apart with a little screwdriver. You get down in there, and you get the pin to pop out, the wire to pop out, and then you cut it, and you put a new pin on it, put it back down in the housing, and you have to do each one. Takes forever. So I think we've spent about 3.5 hours on this board, on just the board, not counting the connectors. So even if we got a new board though, we'd have to do the connectors. So we'll go mess with that a little bit. I'll show it to you in the cabinet. This one looks like it burnt or something, but it didn't. That's just like some kind of fluid, something. Ugh. This one, they look pretty good from this side, but I'll bet once I get them out, they don't look so hot. And then this one, directly in the path of the corrosion, so that one will need to be redone too. So I just got to go through and replace a bunch of those pins. So the way I do it is, you need to get the old pin out of the housing. You can just use a little screwdriver. There's a little blade that you push, and then it'll slide out. But you got to do them one at a time and think about it before you pull it out, because like if you pull that red one out, as soon as you do, you now have 6 different spots it could go. You might not remember where. Then I cut the end of it off. Then I use these badass crimpers, crimp a new end on it. So I get you can get the little end crimps, the connectors on Great Plains Electronics, just like the other stuff. So I'm going to do the I'm going to do the power one first so that we can test it. So you saw how it looked pretty good. The very first pin I pulled out was broken in half. So even if they look pretty good, you got to get in there if you know the corrosion's been in that area. So of course that never would have connected, and I think that's like the ground. Okay, so we put it back in the game. We've got the power one redone, and we'll see what happens when we flip the switch. So now we haven't tested any of these chips. We don't know if any of these are any good. We just cleaned them. So if any of those are messed up, we may just get a solid light. Yeah, which is exactly what we got. Alright, so we're going to try it one more time. That sucks. So now we have to try to figure out, basically it's not even trying to boot, so we need to figure out if it's one of these three chips is bad. I think on a Stern, the ROMs can do it too. These two you don't have to worry about yet. And we need to make sure that the reset section's working, so let's see what we can figure out first. So the first thing was, I checked the voltage. The 5 volts wasn't on the board, but a lot of times that could be the ground too. So I checked, and these two pins were not connecting good to the ground. So I resoldered these two pins on the top and the bottom, so they're making good ground contact to our screwed up ground trail all the way around here. But I think we got it now, and they weren't making good contact before, so we'll try it back in the game and see if we get our 5 volts on the board now. Okay, so let's try it again. That's more like it, but then it I heard the solenoid on the sounded like this flipper relay came on, and it didn't ever flash again. Let me see if that's, yeah, if you watch real close. Alright, so we got one flicker. We're not getting our first flash, we're just getting a real quick flicker. But that at least means the reset section's working. So on to the next thing. So check in pinrepair.com. Your ROMs are a problem if you're not getting the first flash. So we're getting a flicker. That looks like a flash, but really it's the flicker. So we're getting the flicker, but we're not getting the first flash, which means that these ROMs are screwed up. So what I'm going to do is, you can't even test these ROMs because they're 9316 mask chips. I don't even know how to test them. But you can replace them with a single, on this board, since it's so early, you can replace both of them with a single 2732 EEPROM that you can put right here. So I'm going to take both of these out. I'm going to put a new socket here, just so that we got a nice new socket on it. And then I'm going to burn a new 2732 with both of these combined on it. And then there's a couple jumpers that you have to do. We'll do that following the advice on pinrepair.com, and then we'll see if that gets us past the first flicker. All right, got the new socket in. Now we need to do the mods. Okay, so you basically need to tell the CPU where the ROMs are and what they're doing. So you want, for this mod, you want 6 and 7, this jumper, to be connected. And you want 8 and 10, this jumper, to be connected. Now, because of the 9316 and the 9316 that were in it before, it also had 4 and 3 connected, so you cut that loose. And it also had 1 and 2 connected, so you cut those loose. So that gives you the correct jumpers, but now we have to add some jumpers they never designed, because at the time this was made, they hadn't started using 2732 chips yet. So we're going to mod it up. So first we cut the trace leading to U18 pin 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bam, cut it. Okay, so this is U18, so pin 4 used to be connected to this. We cut it loose so it no longer is, and we connected pin 5 to it instead. So this via here goes to the other side of the board and connects to our socket that we're going to use U2. So we've moved one address line or whatever by doing that. So we've ran a little jumper from pin 5 to the actual via, and then you check it with a multimeter to make sure everything's connected and that these two are no longer connected. So that's the first 2 steps of the mod. So on the bottom side of the board, pin 22 connects to this little via here, and then goes straight down and connects to a bunch of stuff, blah, 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 blah. So you cut that so that no longer happens, and then you run a jumper from here to E4, which means that 22 is now connected to E4. So that's steps 3 and 4. Okay, and the last one that you do is you connect E3 to this big fat trace here, which is the ground. So you're basically sending ground to E3. E3 is connected to pin 20. So you're grounding pin 20 by doing that. This one's connected to pin 22. So you're sending pin 22 to wherever E4 goes. And then the other one we cut loose had something to do with an address, like a control line or something. But so now we're ready for a 2732 EEPROM. Drop it right in there. So I'm going to go burn one. Okay, we've burned a new EEPROM. So what we're trying to get is a fast flash and then 7 more full flashes. Fast flash. Whoop. And then it locked on the first flash. Fast flash. Locked on the second flash. Locked on the first flash. Okay, so the first flash means that the ROMs are fine. And then it does like a second flash. We'll have to see what that's for. So the second flash, it's either locking on, or it's locking on the first flash. So it leads me to believe whatever the second one is has a problem, which is probably one of these 2 chips here. Okay, folks, so we are on to something. I have a Sherlock Holmes mystery here in front of me for y'all to help me figure out. Well, you can't really help me figure it out. I'm going to have to do it by myself. You're not even here right now. You're going to be watching this like 2 months from now. But when I put it in, I get the quick flicker, and then the 1 flash, and then that's it. Or sometimes when you turn it off and back on, you get the quick flicker, and it locks on the 1 flash. Or sometimes when you turn it off, you get the quick flicker, and then it gives me 2 flashes. So it's giving me some issues, right? So I assumed, and you know what that means, I assumed that since I had just burnt the new ROM, that all that was good. Everything was cool with the ROM, and that it was having a problem with the second flash. The second flash is the memory that goes here, the RAM. And on any of these flashes, the CPU and the 2 PIA, peripheral interface adapter chips, can be the problem. So basically what it's doing is, when the board comes on, the quick flash means that it has, the reset section has worked, which is all this crazy stuff down here, right? That's usually the problem. So getting that first flash is usually the hardest part. Once you get the first flash after that, it should, instead of 8 flashes, it's 7 flashes, but there's a quick flash at the very beginning. I know it sounds crazy, but it's the truth. So there's a quick flash that's the reset, and then it starts testing. Now the reason I do it like that is because the 7 flashes all require code to run. The quick flash is just a byproduct of the reset working. So there's a quick flash, we got that, the reset's fine. You can check that with a meter on pin 40 of the MPU chip, of the CPU chip, and all of that, which by the way is a 6800, and the PIAs are 6821s. This is old school. I mean, this was designed in like 77, something like that. So it does the quick flash, and then it starts running code. Well, the way it runs code is the CPU starts talking to the ROM, which tells the CPU to run a test, and it starts testing things. Well, the very first thing it tests is the ROM. So it does a quick little test. I don't even, I'm obviously not a computer guy, so I don't even know how the software really works, but it checks the ROM, and that's the first flash. And then the second flash is it tests the RAM. So it kind of needs the ROM and the RAM to run the tests in the first place, right? And the CPU. So because of that, if the CPU is bad, it will give you weird results on those first couple flashes. So if that first flash is screwed up, it could be the ROM is bad or wonky. It could be the CPU is bad or wonky. It could be the RAM is bad or wonky. This is also RAM that's used to save the settings. So this is a 5101. And the battery that was down here keeps it powered at all times so that it saves the bookkeeping and a couple settings on some of the later games. So this RAM works with the 6810 RAM that goes here. And so if all of that is tested right there at the beginning, but you kind of need all of that to do the test to begin with. So the first few flashes are a little weird. So you get the quick flash that says the reset worked. The very first solid flash is saying that the ROM is good. If you get 2 flashes, it's saying the ROM and the RAM is good. The third flash says that the 5101 is good. But if the 5101's bad, it works kind of at the same, it's tied into the 6810. So it can screw up the 6810. Well, if the 6810 is bad, that can screw up the CPU's ability to read the ROM. So really, and all of this is down in the rot section, you know, so really your problem can be the CPU, the ROM, the RAM, the other RAM, or even these PIA chips can cause address lines to hang and stuff like that. So here's what we've got going on. No matter what I did, it kept doing just 1 flash or 2 flashes or no flash or whatever. So I swapped out the CPU chip with several different ones, no change. I swapped out this PIA with several different ones, no change. I swapped out this one with several different ones, no change. I swapped out the RAM with several different ones, no change. I took out the 5101. You don't need this to get the first couple flashes. So I took out the 5101, no change. So then I started doing what I should have did, and I started checking for shorts. So whenever you check for shorts, I'm going to do this chopstick method. I know I've got the better probes now, but I don't want to break them all out right now. Whenever you check for shorts, if you check pin 3 and 4, wah, 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 they're shorted together. So that is address line 4 and address line 5. Now, depending on what kind of person you are, whenever you find 2 of the address lines shorted, you might go, oh man, that's horrible. But I go, man, that's fantastic, that's great, because now I know what the problem is. If pin 3 and 4 are shorted together, the thing's never going to work. So let's look at the schematics real quick. And remember, I'm the one who put it on there. So pin 3 is A5, the address line, and pin 4 is A4, the address line. So somewhere on the board, A4 and A5 are shorted together. So we need to look on the board and figure out where that is. And the way we're going to do it is by looking at everything that A4 and A5 go to, especially the stuff that I worked on. I can't find anything shorted, even on the stuff I put in. So I took off this socket that was here, and there's no damage there either. So that wasn't it. So somehow, those 2 lines somewhere are touching each other. They've got to both go to a resistor or something. And I looked all down here, can't find it anywhere. So I'm trying to focus on like one line and then just follow it everywhere it goes and see if it touches anything. No dice yet. I have found the problem, and I am going to deny responsibility for the problem. I think this thing has been broke. Now, I know I took it out of the game, and you all saw me do it. But I think it's been like this for a long time. I would not do this. Okay, so here are the schematics. And it goes to all these sockets. And I usually don't screw up a socket because whenever I put it in, I always check it as I do it. Pin by pin. Pin by pin, people. And I couldn't find anywhere where I had screwed up. But then, there was this weird little thing on the Bally and the Stern boards where the address lines and the data lines go over here to this. This is just a connector that runs along the top of the board. And so the reason for that is, it's this connector up here. The reason for that is on some of the Stern games, they connect a soundboard to this. I don't know if the Bally games ever even used it, but I know on some of the Stern games, there's a soundboard that connects to this. So like Flight 2000, it's a soundboard that connects to this. And it basically is a way for a separate board to interface with the CPU chip directly through this connector. So since all the address lines and the data lines run up here, if they are shorted on this connector, it will short them all through the board. And so this is the top of it. Look at this crap. Pins 17 and 18 are the ones that we're having the problem with. Look at that. Look at that. Isn't that horrible? Does that look like fresh solder to you? It doesn't to me. I don't think I did it. Okay, so I'm going to go through and that's clearly the problem. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to resolder each one of those connectors so they're nice and distinct and separate. And so my address lines won't be shorting together, and hopefully that'll fix it. That's much better. So fresh and so clean. Okay. None of this is, don't look at any of that. Well, that's not a nice clean looking board. For about 60% of it there, 70% of it, boy, it looks nice and clean. And then, clang, clang, clang. But let's keep it on the positive, okay? So there's nothing shorted anymore, and I have reinstalled this chip. By the way, this chip I replaced because whenever it was doing the ROM thing, before I found the short, I was thinking maybe it was an addressing issue, but it was not. So replace this one, and yes, I'm going to put a sticker on it. You know, I hate how my videos, I have to spend half of my time qualifying everything that I do so that people won't say, "No, put a sticker on the EEPROM. It's going to erase if you don't put a sticker on the EEPROM." I need to stop doing that. I need to just stop even explaining that I'm going to put a sticker on that and let people complain. But I put the EEPROM back on, I put the CPU back in, I put the PIAs back on, put the RAM chip back on, and by the way, those are the 4 original ones that were on it. The 5101 chip, the original one, was all screwed up, so I put a new one on it, and of course the EEPROM's new. There was one socket that was here is no longer used, so it's gone. I left that socket because I found the short before I had to go to it. We still would have to do some kind of battery solution, a remote battery solution. But we're going to test it again and just see if we get more than the same flashes that we were getting before. So we're going to put it back in the game. Keep your fingers crossed. Hopefully this works out well. Okay, so this is what we're looking for. We want a quick flash. And then we want 7 flashes. Now they'll go at different things. Like usually it's 1 flash and then a second one. Or I think it takes a little longer before the second one, because it's running all kinds of math, testing the RAM. And then it'll do 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the 7th one turns on, is checking for the solenoid voltage. But we've only got the 1 connector plugged in for the power. So let's see if we get any more than our first one now that the shorts are removed. So that was the quick one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. What the hell? All right, so it's stuck flashing. I think I may know what that is. Well, let's try it again just to make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, okay. So we're getting too many flashes. But if you notice, they're all equidistant apart. None of them were, there's a pause between the first one and the second one, I believe. So basically it's not running the code right. So we have another thing we need to look at. Okay, if you get one that just keeps flashing, usually it's the 6810 RAM. And if you look, when I put it in, I bent the pin over on one of the legs. So I'm going to straighten that out and put it back in and see if it'll do better this time. Alright, so I fixed the chip. Now we're going to try it again. So we want a quick flash and then 7 more flashes. But not like that last time that it did 7 flashes. That was messed up. Quick flash. 1. See how it stopped a little bit? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Perfect. Did you hear whenever earlier we were having that problem where this was turning on, but it didn't do it till after the 5th one? That's how it's supposed to be. I also hear something underneath buzzing. Maybe it's the coin door one? Yes, it was. Okay, so we haven't hooked up anything else to it yet, though. So we haven't hooked up the lights, we haven't hooked up the displays or any of that. So we'll do that next. But it looks like we have the board up and working. The LED kind of being a little bit dim but turned on is natural. It should do that. That's probably like a slightly different one that runs on a slightly different voltage drop or something. But we're all good. Let's try it one more time. So this is what you should get. Quick flash, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then it goes to a dim LED. And you heard after the 5th one, it turns on the flipper relay, which is kind of how it should be. And then you saw between the first flash and the second flash, there was a little bit of a pause. That's because the CPU is doing a bunch of math checking the RAM. So it's trying to store a number and then adding a bunch of stuff to it and then checking it and then checking the second spot and blah, blah, blah. And so it's doing something like 32,000 computations in that little bit of time. So it takes a little second to do it. But it looks like we are up and running. So I'm going to repin some more connectors, and then once we do that, we'll plug them all in and see what all we get working. See if we can get the displays to turn on or anything. Remember, though, the lamp board is still screwed up, so we're going to have to do the lamp board and the displays in a separate video. But let me mess with the connectors a little bit, and we'll see where we're at. Okay, so I repinned the connector, mainly this one. I repinned this entire connector here. Right, this one was fine. That part that looked like it was burnt, it's not burnt. It was just black gook. This part over here, everything looked cool on it, but who knows? But it looked fine. So we're going to turn it on and see if we get any lights, even with the the lamp board all screwed up, and if the displays do anything. All right, a couple lights came on. They're probably locked on because of the lamp board. And we have our credit and ball and play display is working. And then we have the number 120 over here, which I guess is the high score that's saved in the board since we replaced the RAM and we don't have a battery to save the backup power yet. I mean to back it up yet. I wonder if any of the switches will work to add credits. Let's see if I can get it to do anything. Well, we're not getting any sounds. Not getting any sounds, but we did add 5 credits. It kind of sounds like the solenoids probably aren't doing anything there. You'd think it would have played like a little startup tune or something. See, we've got them plugged in. Let's see if it'll try to start. It clicked. I did hear a click. We have 4 credits. We are scoring. All right, so I guess we're up and running. But we've still got lots of issues. But guess what? This video is almost an hour long again already. That's way too long. So we're going to have to break it off again. So, but at least we got the board up and running. So if you have one that you're messing with, now you know some of the stuff you might run into. If you're trying to save the old screwed up alkaline damaged board, which the question that you always have is, how reliable is it now? Wouldn't we be better off with a new one? We would, but would we be better off without $200? I don't know. Kind of in between on that one. All right, so we looks like we have the board at least working, but got some solenoid issues that we'll work on next time. So make sure to give us a thumbs up for taking the trouble to film it for you. And leave your comments below. Let us know what you think so far. Hopefully, if you're working on an MPU, on a Bally or a Stern game, this will help you get somewhere on it. Now, you can see all the games that we have available for sale on our website. Go to lionsarcade.com. Or you can stop by and see us in person. We're in downtown Rock Hill, South Carolina, about 15 miles south of Charlotte, North Carolina. And we've been telling everybody, if you can, click the Amazon link below. It'll be like in the comments and in our description. If you click that link, you don't have to sign up for anything or fill out anything or do anything. You literally just go to Amazon by clicking that link, and it keeps track that you came there from us, and it gives us a little piece of anything you choose to buy on Amazon. So if you buy a sports car, it gives us a little royalty of that. Or if you buy, what did you buy on there the other day, Matt?
Let's see, I bought a Bondo Scrapers.
Bondo Scrapers. If you buy Bondo Scrapers, it gives us a little piece of the Bondo Scraper money. And it doesn't raise your prices. It gives us part of Amazon's money. Matt, don't you feel better knowing that you took some of Amazon's money and slid it over here to me?
I'm waiting for my cut.
Oh, okay. Matt wants his cut. All right. So, yeah, click the link below. And if you go to Amazon and buy anything, it'll give us a little piece of it, and it doesn't raise your prices or anything. Did you feel like it raised your prices any, Matt?
No.
Okay. And was it hard to do?
Not at all.
Not at all. Okay. You just click the link. All right. So we appreciate that. And then finally, the last thing that we have to talk about, we have started another channel. It's called My Brother Donnie, and it is about my brother Donnie. And me and him, at the moment, are working on this old mobile home that we bought in Jefferson, South Carolina. And when we bought it, the thing was destroyed. It's completely destroyed, and we're fixing it up, and we're going to rent it. And it's kind of funny. If you haven't met Donnie yet, he's a character. He also has some farming things on there, and he does small engine repair and stuff. And he's a real go-getter. Matt, you met Donnie before, haven't you?
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, he has. So, make sure to check it out. The name of the channel is actually My Brother Donnie. So check it out and leave your comments below. We appreciate you watching this far into the video, and we'll mess with the lamp driver board, figure out what's going on with the solenoids, and mess with the displays next time.